While I got this up and I have the stab off here, in the spring you're supposed to lubricate these cables. I've never had much trouble with them. These are inspection plates. You'll see them all off over here, but all you have to do is pull it one way or the other. It's got a little spring clip in there. This is a plastic ring in the fabric, and you can push that over and move it this way, and that'll hold it in there. And then inside there you'll see a little wheel, and this cable runs inside the tube for the elevator. It runs down through there on the inside of the elevator, and this steel cable, you can inspect it, see if you feel any loose wires or anything like that. This is one place you can get to it. There's another inspection cover, same size on the other side. The covers are available from anybody that can sell you Cessna parts, because they're kind of it's a standard size, those covers, and they're on a lot of airplanes for inspecting and stuff. So I just put a little spray lubricant on there to make sure that wheel spins good, but I've never had any trouble with it. You don't get dirt in there or grass or anything else, so it's a pretty easy do. I'm going to put a little bit here just because I see, probably from age and sitting in a damp hanger and everything, I'm going to put a little bit on that spring clip. Like I say, you can get these and they're pretty cheap, but no sense letting it rust away and having to buy another one if I don't. Here we go. Nope, I don't have it yet. We go too far. There we go. Now I got it. Gotta get right in the middle. And like I say, there's another one on the other side, and there's also some on the wings if you ever need to look inside there or need to get in there to see something. This is the back end of the plane. You've got a couple more rollers here. Now all those do is guide this cable that goes to the back seat, the rear seat pedals, rudder pedals. That's what those do. And we got to put a little bit of lube on them. But the main thing I wanted to check in here was this rivet. There's a rivet right here, and that rivet in the center, there's a heavy piece of metal that goes between this side. You see some rivets here and that side, and it helps keep these kind of long rods here from spreading on you. Now these are the ignition coils. I mounted the ignition coils. They're not mounted on the engine, so when you take the spark plugs loose, these wires, it comes, if you pull a spark plug wire off, and these wires here are all you got to disconnect as far as the coils go. The rest of the stuff I put trailer plugs and stuff in to make it easy to get apart. This right here is the strobe. Actually, it's a beacon, I'd call it. Has a LED flasher that's mounted on top of the rudder, and you can set it to different patterns and stuff, but I guess you can look that up on the internet. But these are the ignition coils, one here and one here, and it's dual ignition, of course. There it is. There's my fuel filter. It's just held with a nylon wire tie, which you can cut off there if you want to change this. Usually I change this every year, put a new fuel filter on, but it depends on how much you fly. I flew quite a bit, so anyways, it's got a new filter on it, and it plugs into the fuel hose here. This bracket right here, this is where the trailing edge of the wing goes on there, and there's a bolt just goes through there, and that's what holds the trailing edge on. Normally when you put bolts in, you'd want to go from the front to the rear and put the nut on the back. That's how they tell you, so air pressure from the wind and stuff isn't going to want to work that bolt out. But you can only do that in some places. There's a lot of places on here where you have to go from the back to the front with a bolt. Either because you can't get the bolt in, or you can't get it to it where the nut is. So that's something that they leave to your own devices. This thing in here is the rotary valve oil in this little container, which is clamped in there with these two little screws and this little piece of aluminum here. That's what holds it in there. It's up just fine. Of course, like I say, these guys didn't fly it anywhere. I had it all set to go. So anything that's been changed on here from the way I had it set, that's people messing with it. They've been fooling with it. But anyways, one of these hoses is attached to a spigot here that stands up high out of the oil, and the other one is just an opening in the bottom. So the oil, as you can see, it's got arrows on it here. The oil here can go down this hose, so that's the one that goes on the lowest point. And then as it fills the gearbox with oil, the air will come out through this hose and out this standpipe right here. So you have to make sure that where it's attached to the engine down underneath there, that you put the right hose on the right connection. But it's really just a little box in the middle of the crankshaft, and it fills up with oil, and if the oil goes down one tube, it can go out the other way. If you had these reversed and you poured oil in there, it isn't going to be as likely to want to go in there and fill up that gearbox, because there'd be air trapped in there, and you got to figure how to get the air out. What the pop rivets are. And I just drill it enough until the head comes loose like that, and I got it loose. It's pretty simple to take out a rivet. That's really, there you go. Now I can get maybe a little punch or something and poke those rivets into the inside of that tube, and then if I turn it up like this, after I knock those rivets in there, the ends of the rivets will fall out. So this is just some fabric on here that was put on I was trying to keep cold air out and rainwater out. If this thing sat outside, I didn't want any rainwater coming in there. So it's just some of that, it's called sailcloth repair tape. You get it at sailboat shop would have it, or get it on the internet. That's what I did. Get it cheaper that way. To replace the pulse line on this fuel pump, you got a couple screws. Another one down here you got to take out. 2 screws, and then the pump will come loose, and then you pull it away where you can get this pulse line, which is urethane here. And like I say, it will deteriorate. I'd say every 2-3 years anyways, you ought to replace that. Don't let it go too long. Especially if it gets to looking, this is what a new piece looks like. It's just got a little yellowish tinge to it. But if it gets to where you can't see inside that thing, it's starting to turn on you, and you better replace it. There's a little hose clamp here on each end. I don't know if you can see it in this camera footage or not, but there's a little hose clamp there, a little tiny one that you have to take loose, and then you just pull it off that barb on the crankcase. And of course the pulse hose line itself should always be higher than the engine here. That's so if there's any oil or anything gets in there, it can drain down and go into the engine. You don't want to get a slug of oil going into this fuel pump right here, because that would stop it from working. Once there's oil in there, it's not going to pump. It stops the diaphragm. The diaphragm can't move. So you don't want that filling up with oil. And I have it just mounted on a couple of aluminum bars here. It's nothing too fussy, and nothing really to worry about. It's just pretty much dependable. The thing you got to worry about is the pulse line. That seems to be the big problem with them. These, in my opinion, these pulse pumps should be built into the crankcase itself. There should be put the diaphragm and parts on there, so you don't have a pulse line at all. And I'd say if they build them so that they were on the side of the engine, that way it would work vertical, or upside down or right side up, either way. That would be better, I think. There would be no pulse line there. See if you can see where I'm touching here. This pulse line should be kept as short as possible, because you don't want to lose the pulse. The pulse is the important thing. So if the shorter you can keep it, the better off you are. That's important.